Hello, ladies, and welcome to 2024. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a wonderful New Year wherever in the world you celebrated. We had a very low-key New Year at home. We were with the children. We did a little glow in the dark party for them. So they basically had their like flashing like LED light thing. So we put some music on and they had a little mini kids disco and we just did some sparklers with them. And then it was going to be very low key. Well, it was very low key. We had dinner and I was falling asleep before midnight. So I thought I'm just going to take myself up to bed. And then the fireworks started and we had the most amazing firework display which went on for I'd say a good 40 minutes. And this wasn't just like your odd few like random, bangs. It was a full on like Sydney Harbour Bridge firework display. Definitely could have competed with Sydney. So yeah, it was really amazing. And the next day was my eldest daughter, Rafi. It was her 5th birthday. So she's a New Year's Day baby. And I always get really upset about how quick I feel like time is going. It feels like since becoming a mother, I feel like all of a sudden, like time feels like it's passing at this really fast pace. And I just want to treasure like these early days where they're children as much as possible. And it really gets me quite emotional when I think of time passing too quickly and their childhood being over too quickly. But then equally, I look back at photos of when she was a tiny newborn and think, wow, that actually feels like a lifetime ago. So yeah, it's always quite an emotional day for me on birthdays and things. But yeah, especially because she's my firstborn. And so it brings back all of those memories of first, becoming a mother and everything that came with that. And so yes, that was a very quick update. Other than that, I haven't really done all of that much. I've just been frantically packing, trying to get things ready. We are driving up to the mountains, so about 2.5 hours from where we live in the south of Spain. There is a ski resort called Sierra Nevada. So we are blessed enough to live in a place where it's pretty much sunny every single day. But then we are also a short drive to the ski slopes, which is one of my favorite things to do. Fun fact, my husband and I actually met in a ski resort. We met in Switzerland. So that's always been kind of our thing that we do together. So yeah, I'm really excited to get up there. But what I wanted to share for this video are some of what I feel like are my key lessons that have helped me build a multi-million pound company. Now, the reason why this is kind of topical at the moment is because what I like to do at the end of the year and at the start of a new year is to kind of sit and reflect on how far I've come, sort of celebrate the milestones I've come, and also kind of look at the lessons that I've learned along the way. Mainly so I can sort of pass on this wisdom, but to also kind of think about, okay, well, what have I learned? What do I need to do differently? And just to kind of do a bit of a business debrief. So I've been kind of going through this process myself recently, and I thought what would be perhaps useful for you ladies, those of you who are entrepreneurs, maybe you're thinking of starting a business, is to just pass on what I believe have been some of my biggest lessons that have helped me grow my business to a multi-million pound business over the past years. So let's get started with that. So lesson one then. Lesson one is that a multi-million pound business, it doesn't actually need to start off as a multi-million pound idea. So when I first started my coaching business, of course, I thought, you know what, I would like to make good money. I'd like to be wealthy. I'd like to live a big life. But in all honesty, I really just wanted to make enough money so that I could do what I love and be able to pay my bills and maybe have some money left over to do some traveling. And it definitely did not feel like a multi-million pound business back then because I didn't see the demand for coaching. So I knew that there were people that were willing to pay for coaching sessions. But if I was charging for my time as a coach, let's say £100 for an hour session, it seemed really unrealistic that I could then turn this business into a multi-million pound empire. So I wanted to be able to rely on coaching as my only source of income, and I didn't want to have a job on the side. So making money was really important to me. But with my initial business model as a coach, so this was selling one-off sessions or maybe even a batch of perhaps 5 or 10 sessions, I didn't even consider this to be a multi-million pound business idea. Now, I did know that there were lots of coaches out there that were making millions, hundreds of millions, in fact. So, Tony Robbins, for example. So I knew there were people like this, but I saw them more as the exception, not the norm. So if I was to think of building a multi-million pound business back then, for me, it would have been in something revolutionary. So something in tech, for example, something that was going to actually be used by the masses. And coaching at that time wasn't, and arguably still isn't, mainstream. So in my mind, in order to scale to a million, what I was selling would need to be something that everyone wanted and needed. Now, I later read this entrepreneur's case study. It was actually, no, I listened to it on a podcast. It was a lady who made her first million by teaching people how to scrapbook. So, cutting things out and sticking things into a book. And it was £1 million business idea. So this got me thinking that £1 million business isn't necessarily about coming up with the next big thing or creating some sort of revolutionary technology advancement or, reinventing the wheel. £1 million business can be created with a relatively simple idea, scrapbooking, for example. It's already being done, maybe coaching, for example. But it's then changing the model of that business to make it more scalable. So for me, this meant things like, two major things. Firstly, the way I work with my clients. My initial business model was offering one-off sessions and working with individuals. So making it more scalable meant working with clients in a group setting on a longer term basis by creating these group coaching programs. And these programs would last 12 weeks or more. Now, I then went one step further and I actually hired coaches to help me deliver these coaching sessions, which then allowed for me to then work with more clients at a time. I then added in things such as online courses. So these were like passive income products. I added these into our product suite so, I could make money more passively. Now, the second thing that helped me make my business more scalable was actually to start selling something that more people wanted. Now, the truth is, when I started out as a coach, I knew that coaching, it wasn't mainstream. It wasn't something that everybody was necessarily looking for. I didn't really know many people in my network that had ever worked with a coach. So rather than focusing on selling my coaching, I started to actually focus on selling the transformation and the outcomes that my coaching provided. So the outcomes were things like greater clarity on what they really wanted in life, what their purpose actually was in their career, what they wanted their career to be, more confidence, more self-worth, more, ability to kind of go for the things that they want in life, more clarity on the steps that they needed to take to get them there. Now, these outcomes had much more mass appeal and are things that people know that they really want. I recognize that people didn't realize that a coach could actually help them. So to sell something which they don't necessarily even realize they need, such as coaching, or want, would have actually been a real uphill struggle. So my initial idea to coach a couple of people per month and, to make enough money to pay my bills within a few years, this had all of a sudden become a scalable product with a huge potential of, people who actually needed and wanted what I was offering because I was selling that transformation and not necessarily the coaching. And this is the first thing that really has helped me to scale my business to where it is today. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that when it comes to making money, people will often glorify the hustle and the taking action, because these things will often come with immediate and tangible results. And there's been many times within my business when I've heavily lent into my masculine energy. You know, I've woken up early to get working on my business before I went to work. I did late nights. I constantly operated at speed. And I know that lots of people will say that this is what is required of you in business, especially if you're thinking to grow to £1 million or more. But from my experience, these results that you get from working in this way, they're not always sustainable, especially when they're built on a shaky foundation. So what I mean by a shaky foundation is one where you've not been able to meet your own emotional and spiritual needs. So people really love to shout about the hustle because, often it can be linked directly to immediate or fast results. For example, hey, look at me, I did 30 sales calls in 2 days and I made 20K in sales, which is great, but people don't necessarily talk about how much humility healing actually takes. So inner work often goes unnoticed, it goes unrecognized, but it's actually the whole foundation of your growth. And without it, any success you build, it can only stand up for so long. So I personally want to be an example to my audience of what is possible in business and what is possible financially, but I also want to be really real with people about the journey that I've been through in order to get here. And there's really been some moments when I have felt like there has been no external progress at all. Things are moving at a snail's pace. But the progress has actually been me healing behind the scenes, doing the work internally, healing my inner child, breaking generational patterns of people pleasing, regulating my nervous system after being, in fight and flight mode for so long, learning to be in my feminine energy more, healing my relationship with money. The thing is, we repeat what we don't repair. So I know that for me, this deep work, it's a non-negotiable. Even though it may not be the thing that moves the needle forwards in terms of business growth right away, it's going to be the inner work that helps you long term. So, there's many success stories out there from people who built their businesses to £1 million in the space of, 1 year or maybe even less. I've listened to hundreds of podcast episodes, so many YouTube videos of entrepreneurs who are an example of this really quick, rapid, fast success. But for not 1 minute do I regret the timing of my journey, because I know that I've needed to heal along the way. And I know that I needed to become the woman who was not only capable of building a £1 million plus business, but also the woman who could sustain that growth, could continue on that growth trajectory. And that's the important thing. People will often talk about what it takes to get to, that £1 million business, but not so many people talk about what is actually required to keep yourself at that level, or to perhaps even surpass that level. Without the continued commitment to healing and inner work, it's going to be very easy to find yourself back in the same patterns of sabotage. It's easy to lose momentum. Maybe it's, a case of feeling uncomfortable in your newfound wealth or position of responsibility. Maybe it's feeling guilty for what you have when perhaps others have a lot less. Maybe it's feeling like you're now going to be perhaps judged by others. Maybe you are so afraid of losing what you've built that that energy you're in, it then creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's inner work and healing that will not only get you there, but they're the things that are going to help you to continue to evolve and to grow. And speaking of patterns, let's then move into the next lesson, as this is tied into what I refer to as the perfectionist curse. So letting go of perfectionist tendencies and allowing good enough to be good enough has really helped me hugely in my business journey, specifically when it comes to product development. So I cannot stress enough the importance of creating a minimum viable product, no matter what industry you're in. So what I mean by a minimum viable product is something that you can launch and get to market in the shortest time possible. And then what you do is you continue to work on and refine this product over time. So I see this especially within the coaching space, actually, where too much time is often spent trying to make the most perfect coaching program that you could ever create, when the reality is the first version of the program you ever release will very likely evolve over time. So just like the iPhone, for example, it keeps getting better and better. Apple isn't sat there thinking, this could be a lot better. Let's just wait a few more years until we can advance this even more before we release it. If it did this, it would never actually release anything. So you have to be willing to grow as you go and allow for your product, your programs, your coaching programs, your services, allow them to be a constant work in progress. So one of my programs I offer is called the Click Academy. So this is my coach training. It's now been running for 5 years. And these 5 years have been a constant process of evolution. So we've made our platform more sophisticated. Our technology has advanced. We've added in content. We've refined how the product has been, or the program rather, is being delivered. We've brought in new coaches to deliver additional trainings. We've got additional accreditations and recognition. We are constantly asking our students for feedback, so we can constantly improve our program. Giving myself permission to release the program initially, knowing that it will continue to get better and evolve over time and isn't, the final end product, this has been a huge win for my business. But again, this was mostly an internal challenge for me because, rather than a practical one, because in my head, I'm saying this needs to be perfect. I need to keep working on it. It's not ready yet. This could be better. And what a lot of this came down to was that my own sense of worthiness was tied up in my work. So I was seeing my business as a reflection of me, and releasing my program was not just about me selling my coaching, but it was also a way for me to demonstrate that I'm capable, I'm able to be successful, I'm able to create something that is really worthwhile and it's really going to make a big impact in the world. I didn't want the world to see something incomplete or imperfect. And this then led me down to a whole other rabbit hole of my childhood, where I had huge expectations put on me in terms of academic achievements, and the way I derived my love, acceptance, and my sense of worth was, as a child, it was by being that perfect student at school. So these perfectionist tendencies to be the best, they really ran deep. And I had to get comfortable being good enough. I had to be okay with being the beginner and not perhaps having the best product on the market to begin with. But with a growth mindset, I was able to realize that the best way to learn how to swim, for example, is to just throw yourself in at the deep end. So my program, to begin with, it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. And I knew that by getting it out there, as soon as I could get the feedback that I needed to refine it. I could then invest more money into making it better, and I could keep refining it, and I could keep evolving it, and I could keep growing it and being in that mentality of constant evolution. And that program has now become one of the leading and fastest growing ICF accredited coach training programs globally. And if I'd have waited for that to be perfect before I'd released it, I definitely would not be sharing this video with you. I definitely would not be sharing this video with you right now. So my message to you, well, kind of a wrap up of, I think, this whole video is, first of all, a lot of the time, the things that we think are a business program all come back to being an internal issue. And I really just want to encourage you and invite you today to choose progress over perfection and to learn to grow and evolve as you go. Now, I'm going to park this one here because I have got some packing to do as we head off to the mountains tomorrow morning. So I very much look forward to connecting you in the next video. Have a great week, ladies, and I will speak with you soon.